Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 255 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and a two-time author. Our second book is called From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing. That is available now on Amazon, so go and pick up that book today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, today we're going to be talking about acing job interviews. We're going to be talking about moving up the corporate ladder. And here's the interesting thing. We're all tempted to always prove ourselves and justify why we belong in a particular company. But if there is one piece of advice I can give you, it's that other people love to talk about themselves in a corporate setting. So when you meet a hiring manager, when you meet that CEO of a company, instead of talking about yourself all the time, ask them how they got to where they are and genuinely listen to what they have to say. Ask them follow-up questions. The fact that you're taking real interest in their journey will then make you a leading candidate in their mind. Our next guest is the founder of UNignorable. Rob Tillman strategically positions and empowers you to confidently reach your goals and finally earn what you deserve. Over 2 decades, he has advanced to become an executive at an almost billion-dollar company. He's secured his family's financial future, spearheaded $227 million in annual sales growth, had $9 million in savings, and grew businesses in the United States, Mexico, China, Germany, the UK, and France. He's trained over 1,800 people, creating opportunities for thousands, and he's advanced careers and doubled earnings. He can't wait to hear your story. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
It's
Thanks for having
going
me.
great. It is my pleasure to be with you. I am so happy that you and I have connected because we just have so much in common. And I think that our listeners are going to have so much to gain from listening to you and what you have to say about your experience in life here. Now, I want to take everybody back. Let's go back to the start. You decided on Oklahoma State University for your undergraduate experience. So I'm wondering to myself, why is Oklahoma State your choice?
Why wouldn't it be everybody's choice? No. The serious reason why I was at 15 years old, then I made a decision and I talked to my parents and I said, hey, I know you all are doing the best you can. And you have 3 kids and you're going to try to put 3 kids through school. I said, you're not going to put me through school. I said, there's 3 options for me. I am going to graduate and I'm going to get a job. I'm going to the military. I'm going to get a full scholarship. And lucky for me, that full scholarship came from Oklahoma State. So that's exactly why I picked it.
Good for you, man. I love that. I think that's the best answer I've heard all day. I mean, we need to be thinking about college debt and making sure that we reduce that, eliminate that any way possible. So that's my best advice to anybody listening. If you have an opportunity to get a scholarship and get a free ride, take it all day long, because you know what? I mean, why have that debt if you don't need it? So I love that. And you also joined Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So what was special about Alpha that made you want to join that fraternity?
Again, same question. Who wouldn't want to be Alpha Phi Alpha? Not really. The reason why was because of the history. Alpha was the first Black Greek letter organization founded back in 1906. And there have been so many people who were first within that, like Martin Luther King Jr., Thurgood Marshall. And I want to consider that at someday I'll be considered one of those first from all the different things I've been making first at.
I totally get that. Some of my best friends are alphas, and boy, oh boy, I mean, there's a little bit of Martin Luther King Jr. in each and every one of them. It's amazing to me how that happens. They somehow find alpha, and they're all like of that mold. Do you see that as well?
I do. I think a lot of it is because how their recruitment in Alpha always is. Alpha is looking for people who want to be leaders. Not that everybody else isn't, but their whole focus is they want people who are going to represent the Alpha brand and are going to step into being a leader as you journey through college and then outside of college.
Yeah, that's amazing how they do that all over the nation. It just blows my mind because every time I meet them, I'm like, here we go, another Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, what? How do they do that? It's amazing. Anyway, but I can go down that rabbit hole and we'll save that for another day. Now, I want to talk about your career because I really think this is fascinating. I mean, I kind of led with it in terms of $227 million in annual sales growth, training over 1,800 people. You've worked with all branches of the military, government, commercial aerospace, automotive technologies, telecommunications, even research at the most prestigious universities in the world. So
Right.
if someone is listening right now, and let's assume for a moment that they're really not the outgoing type, do you think that they can still get promoted and move up the corporate ladder like you did?
Absolutely. The crazy thing about it is most people think I am an extrovert. I've taken every single test and I even know it inside myself. Right before getting on this show, then it takes everything to get me pumped up. I'm primarily introverted, but I learned this thing called situational extrovert. A situational extrovert is where you're able to figure out how to pump yourself up for when you need to. But there's something important for you to know. You don't have to do that to move up. If you look up the ladder, you're going to see all different types of people. Bill Gates is really reserved, and he's again at the top of an organization. It's not about how outgoing you are, it's about making sure that you're genuinely you and that people can really connect with the person that you are. And we can talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, I love that. And you're absolutely right about Bill Gates. I mean, he's one of the most introverted people that you'll ever meet. I know his mother was very instrumental in getting him to be positioned the way that he is today.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, ordinarily very much an introvert. And the funny part is that I'm a public speaker. You'll see me out on stages speaking in front of 4,000 college students. The reality is I'm an introvert. That's the secret. When I get on the airplane to go to that college campus, I'm putting on my headphones. I don't want anybody to talk to me. You know what I mean? People just assume that I just want to talk to everybody. And the reality is, it's really not. It's really just, kind of like Rob was saying. I mean, there's a situation where you get me up on a stage and suddenly I light up. But ordinarily in the real life, I'm an introvert. That's the
Same,
bottom line.
literally, same here. I just did a speech in Dubai,
Yeah.
and literally right before it, then I'm pacing, my hands are getting all sweaty, and then I even have to just get myself all hyped up to say, okay, I'm about to get on this stage and I have to do it. So I just actually danced my way to the stage to try to get those jitters out. And people thought it was dancing. They got all excited with the playfulness of it, but it was really just me getting all my jitters out so I could get on that stage and deliver that message.
There you go. I love it. Everybody's got kind of their own little thing of what they do before they get up on stage. But yeah, you got to hype yourself up. You got to get in that
Literally.
mode to really give everything you got and leave it all out there on the stage. And that, takes some practice and getting in the right mindset in order to be able to do that. Now,
Absolutely.
you bring a lot of value to the table. It's very clear to me based on your accomplishments and just, your overall demeanor. I mean, you bring a lot to the table. So I'm wondering, how do you put all the value that you bring to a company, how do you put that on your resume? How do you put that in places like LinkedIn?
Oh my goodness, that is one of the greatest questions, and that's what I help so many people with. And I want to make sure I share with your audience some true tips for what they could do today to put this in action. Remember, people hire people, they don't hire paper. So your resume and LinkedIn are actually just like paper. And people write to that paper and they're not understanding there's another human on the other side. Write to a human. What does a human want on the other side of it? So write your resume in language that a human's going to understand. People use all these crazy big words and it just makes people just fall apart. And also on LinkedIn, then there are two very important places, your headline and your about. In your headline, think about what would make you stop and be interested in a person. So it's good to have things like quotes that other people are talking about you. It's good to have things where you're expressing a thought instead of just writing, I'm a designer or I'm an engineer or I'm an accountant. That's going to get ignored. You need something that talks to a human and a human will react back to you.
I absolutely agree with that 100% and use that about area that you're talking about in order to tell a story.
Mhm.
I think that's how you connect with another human on the other side of that screen is by telling stories. Great speakers really what they are, they're really good storytellers. And so if you
Truly.
can tell a story in that about us area on LinkedIn about, something that happened, share a success story and how that played out. That is so much better of a use of that space than just giving me a list of your accomplishments. Tell me a story, suck me
Oh,
into that story, and then I will connect with you every time.
Mike, you hit something. I just had a client yesterday that I was talking to this about. And I said, there's another little hack. Again, I want to make sure I'm giving your audience really tangible, actionable things because that's what I love to give. And an actionable thing is in that about section, then you start off with a story, but you start off with the intro of a story and make sure that you don't finish the line before the more tab, before the more button.
Mm.
That person will get drawn into the story. That you set up the story and then they have to press the more button. They're actually engaged in the story and they're more likely to read it. If you just write a sentence and then it has the more button, see more button, they're less likely to press it. So make sure that your sentence is actually not completing when it's going down in the about. And everybody will know what I mean when you look at your LinkedIn profile. So that's
Absolutely.
another little hack that allows people to say, wait, I want to figure out the rest of this. And they make a micro commitment to be invested in you when they press that button.
I love it. Great advice, Rob. Now, a lot of the college students who are listening right now, they're obviously going to be new to the workforce. Maybe they're looking for a job now, or maybe, in the next 6 months or so. So they're going to be entering this workforce where there are already established relationships in the organization. So what should you do if there are people at the office that are kind of already the favorites of the boss because they've been there for a while? And now some of these favorites are taking credit for the work that you're doing.
That is common in the workplace. There are a lot of corporate dynamics that you have to figure out, and the favorites is one of them. However, the favorites can be your benefit, not to your detriment. The favorites actually have something about them that the boss likes. Don't try to be a favorite. Don't try to be that person that's trying to be liked, but understand that there's something that they're doing or saying. Quite often it's something that they're saying. There's this terminology called psychological rigidity, and you actually talked a lot about it in your intro when you're talking about how to get a job and how to interview and what are good fundamentals of what you need to do. Everybody has the thing that they naturally gravitate to. And you can look at what the favorites are saying or doing, and you're going to find out what's important to people. Sometimes what's important to people is safety. Sometimes it's trust. Sometimes it's innovation. And you find out what that thing is, and you attach what is naturally in you to that, and you're going to be able to surpass those favorites because the favorites only have the thing called like, and you'll have that thing called value because you'll bring more than just being liked to the table. And at the end of the day, companies pay for value. It doesn't matter how much somebody likes somebody, they're going to pay the person who brings them dollars.
That makes sense to me, 100%. Now, years ago, decades and decades ago, it used to be that people would get hired at a company and they would stay there for like 50, 60 years and retire, right? Like the old
Mhm.
phone companies, they would just stay there forever and retire, and they would have one place of employment their entire life. Well, we know that today things are a little bit different. And so, do you think the key to a better job and getting better pay is to quit and then basically start up the cycle again at another company?
Well, not necessarily. There are, of course, times where you're in a bad situation where it's not really a good fit with you and the company. So in those instances, it absolutely makes sense for you to look for something different. However, I say that there's something much more important. The most important thing is for you to move out. And for millennials, I'm not talking about move out of your parents' house. What I'm talking about is move where out is and how you think about it. Most people think about in this TikTok society standing out, and they say, you know what? I can't stand out here, so I'm going to go to another company and I can stand out because I'll get a new chance to. But what I tell them is the objective is to be outstanding in your current company or wherever you go. You're never really going to be able to ascend until they actually know who you are and what you do. You have to find your niche. You have to find out what you're really good at. And you have to really dig deep into that and push everything about that up into the world so people can understand who you are. And in your company that you're at, if you're able to establish that, then you'll actually continue growing and you won't have to worry about going to some other place.
Really nice. I like that a lot. Yeah, there's definitely occasions where the best solution is really to move on for whatever
Mhm.
reason. But I also think there are ways that you can stay within the company, especially if you like it and you think that there's a future there, to
Mhm.
stay within and grow that organically and get all the things that you're looking for without having to quit. So think about some of that stuff and listen to what Rob is telling you. I think he's got some really good advice there. Now, a lot of the people who are listening right now, I think they are getting ready for job interviews, trying to put themselves out there and either get their first job or maybe just bounce into a better position. So, what are some tools that our college student listeners can use right now to ace their job interview?
To ace the job interview, I have two different processes. In this short amount of time we have here, I'll give one of them because this one is the one that really is the one that can blow the doors off everything. And what I share is that there are only 3 C's that you ever have to worry about in any interview. If you don't have it already, get a piece of paper because you're going to want to write this down. The 3 C's are confirm, clarify, and confidence. There's a C that you never use in an interview, and it's called convince. No one wants to be convinced. You don't go into an interview trying to convince them that you're the right person for the job. You don't try to convince them that you can do the job. You don't convince them anything. The fact that you're in the interview means they want to hire you. And so many people miss that. They wouldn't waste their time talking to you unless they thought you were a great candidate. So all you have to do is confirm that you're the candidate that they think that you are. So you listen for cues when they're asking you about things that are trying to make sure that what they saw on your resume or what they think you are, and you confirm that. The second thing is they're going to ask you questions which show that they don't understand something, or there may be a gap between what you put in your resume and what they're looking for. And all you do with those is you clarify. You clarify there is not a gap. You clarify that you do have those skills that maybe you didn't put on your resume, or you do clarify that you do have them in a different way that is not necessarily how they thought they were going to come across. So if you're confirming and you're clarifying, the confidence is not for you. What you're doing is you're giving them confidence that they're going to make a smart decision by hiring you. So that's what you're trying to do within that interview. You're only confirming what they want. You're clarifying the things they may not understand, or even questions that they give to you. Don't just try to make something up, clarify it. And finally, you're going to make sure that they leave confidently. Mike talked about getting engaged with them. And there's something that you can do to really get engaged with them is you get them talking by asking smart questions, not just generic questions, but questions that show that you really did your research before you started talking to them. If you think about this, who feels the best after a conversation? The person who talked the most or the person who talked the least? And it's the answer is the person who talked the most. So you would prefer for them to talk at least 60% in the interview and you to talk 40. And they'll feel good about the interview. They'll have confirmed the things they wanted, clarified the things they didn't understand, and they'll have confidence that you're going to be the right hire.
That's a great rule of thumb. That's exactly what I led this interview with. Get them talking about themselves, about how they achieve success, where they see the company going. The more that they're talking, that 60%, like you said, the more that happens, the more that they're going to think that you're qualified for the job. It's wild. It's a little
Absolutely.
bit counterintuitive. You think that you need to dominate the conversation, but that's not the case. You're not going to land that job if you are, taking up 90% of the conversation. I'm just telling you, it's not going to work out the way that you thought. So excellent advice there. Now, inflation is a huge problem right now for recent college graduates because essentially what's happening is their salary is shrinking as
Mhm.
compared to the rising cost for apartments. I mean, rent is just sky high right now. Gas is just out of control, and the cost for food, even just going for groceries, I'm like, how did this get to be so expensive, right? So, what should college students be planning to do right now to combat some of these problems?
There are 2 specific things that every college kid should be doing in order to combat inflation. Number one, maximize your earnings. And I'm not just saying that generically, I'm very much telling you, you need to find out what your value is. You need to understand when you're going into these job interviews and when you're looking at these jobs, what is your value and how can you make a gap between you and that minimum wage, and especially anything that inflation is going to do. You have to make that gap as big as possible because the bigger the gap becomes, the less those things affect you. That's something that I was taught early in my career. They said, don't you worry about inflation, you worry about what you're earning. And if you're earning enough, if you keep on maximizing your earnings, in other words, you push towards making sure that you're getting double-digit raises constantly, then you'll get so far away from inflation, then it's not that you don't feel it, but it doesn't affect you the way that it affects everybody else. The other thing that you can do is make sure that you're making wise decisions with your finances. And when I talk about that, it's not just about savings, it's about understanding the whole scope of finances. If you're making all this money and you're spending all of it, then what good is it? Inflation is going to catch up to you and you're going to have nothing anyway. So you need to make sure that you're understanding how you balance your finances. Keep on making that gap grow between you and what's being eaten up in your earnings, but don't use it all up by spending frivolously. So one of the things that I was taught early is every time that you get a raise, then you only look towards half of your raise or less as what you're going to consider what your expendable income is increased by. And what that does, that continues to give you a gap in what you're spending versus what you're earning. And I got to the point where it was the portion of my spending was just a fraction of what I was earning. And most people think that, oh, it's because you earn so much. Though this was before I was earning a lot. It's because I used that principle every time I was pushing towards a raise. And I was pushing really hard and I was identifying myself as somebody who was unignorable. So I was getting double-digit raises up to 50% in a year by not changing companies, by literally being at the same company.
That's really good advice. I like that. And really, you're talking about the key to profitability. A business can be more profitable either by raising revenues or reducing expenses, right? And that's essentially what you're talking about doing, is owning that for yourself, to make sure that you're starting to grow what it is that you're trying to save, trying to build towards a family, a house, a car, whatever, all these things. But ultimately, it's about balancing how much is coming in versus how much is going out, and making sure it's profitable for you as well.
Absolutely.
So I like that a lot. I think that's really good. Now, you're living out in LA right now, and I know that where you're living, there are so many good local restaurants, and we love good food here at Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I mean, you want to get my attention, let's go out for a great meal, and then you're definitely going to get my attention. So what is your favorite local restaurant I should go and check out in LA the next time I'm in town?
The next time you are in LA, so everybody who lived the college life got very used to breakfast. We are breakfast people. So I remember going across to Shortcakes across the campus in Oklahoma State, and I found a place that's better than Shortcakes. So anybody who knows what that is, then this is going to blow your mind. And it's a place called Nat's Early Bite in Sherman Oaks. It's a little hole in the wall breakfast joint. The place is always packed. It's a diversity of people. Just about any type of food you want is food from the Midwest, the South, Latin dishes, traditional American dishes. That place is incredible. And they might as well they have pictures of all the celebrities that come in there to eat. They might as well put my name there. I'm in there so much.
That's what we're going to do. We're going to take your photo and put it up on the wall.
For real.
I love it. This is great. So if our college student listeners, if they want to connect with you, maybe they want coaching, maybe they want to bring you in to speak on their college campus, where should they go to connect with you, Rob?
Well, I'm always looking to help people. And the easiest way to find me for help would be to go to my website, robtillman.com, ROBTILLMAN.com. I am also on Twitter at Rob Tillman. And I'm just getting started on Instagram. I know everybody is Instagramming, but what I do is not about pictures. It's about words and it's about translating thoughts. But you can find me on Instagram, tillman.rob.
I love it. Those are great places to go. I mean, I know that you're great with the words and you're great on video. I'm just saying TikTok might be the place where your business is going to explode. So don't forget, don't sleep on TikTok. All right.
All right. I'll take that.
Well, Rob, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for helping our college students today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Again, I remember those days and I always think if I had a time machine to go back, what I would do, because I can't do that, I always try to make time to go back by telling people who are in my shoes back when I was there.
Yeah, you and me both. I mean, I wish that, we had more mentors. And I think today's college students, they have even less mentors than we had. So we really need to fill that gap for them and make sure that they have somebody that they can talk to, somebody that they can get coaching with other than their peers, somebody who's got a little bit of experience to kind of help guide them a little bit, I think is super important. So
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. And to our college students who are listening right now, all of our listeners, be sure that you like this conversation with Rob on social media. media, share it with other college students, share it with your friends, because everybody needs to hear what Rob has to say. And we hope to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and we are going to see you next time.